Hi, this is Sean Epperson with Saying 12 Games, and I'm here on Legends of Tabletop.
Hey everybody, how's it going? We've got Sean with us again. He's become a fairly regular participant these days, all the wonderful Kickstarters that they have going. How's it going, sir?
Yay, it's going well, sir. I am excited to be back on talking with you again.
Yay, cool. That's what I like to hear. That's cool. You've got a new Kickstarter going for Dice of Pirates. Sounds vaguely similar to something that you've had before. So you guys are fully funded, so congrats. That's awesome.
Yay! Thank you, thank you. Yeah, we're excited that we funded within the first, oh gosh, what was it? Let me think about that.
First day, right? For sure.
It was definitely the first day. I think we funded in 11 hours, 10 hours, something like that. We basically beat our previous time by 7 hours. So
Nice.
yay! we shaved a lot off and just made it a little quicker, so that was cool.
That's good. And so as I was doing research, I was going through and watching Kickstarter video. Bill's voiceover for the whole pirate thing was awesome. Like he just nailed it. It was so good.
Yeah, Bill actually does a lot of voiceover stuff. So he works with me at our day job, and one of his side gigs is he just does voiceover stuff. Like he's done some work on some books, and he's in a band where he does singing, a cappella type stuff. Really, really talented guy, and he can do a lot of different voice types. Where he carpools with us in the morning, and he's hilarious. So he'll make jokes and voices of Yoda or voices of Christopher Walken or whatever. He's super talented. So getting him to do the voiceover stuff with us was kind of a no-brainer. And in fact, he was down for it. I was super excited. So yeah, he was like, "All right, get to do pirates. Sure, it's gonna be cool." So.
Nice. I will file that away in the back of my memory, and that may come up later on. Who knows? We'll see what happens. So Pirates is the next game in the Dice of universe. How many do you have? Like a set number, like a pre-plan? Like, oh, we're going to do 3 of these or 4 of these. Is there any kind of?
We are looking at doing 3.
Okay.
So there definitely will be another Dice of game coming. We haven't. People that get the Dice of Pirates game, they'll get a little surprise in their tin when they open it up to see what the next one is. We're definitely going for this sort of like trilogy approach to the universe, and then we'll see where we go. Like we might branch into a different universe, or something different with that. I'm not sure. We'll kind of see how fate takes us, if you will.
Okay. Was that the plan going in? Were you inspired by like AEG, like what they did with the Tempest universe, or was just like, oh, this is this cool mechanic, this is a cool idea. Can we parlay this into a series of
parlay? When Badger brought the original Dice of Crowns to me, I knew it was something that was really cool. But from a company standpoint, a publisher standpoint, I wanted to have things that were more evergreen. Things that we could grow and continue to bring interesting things to the game playing audience. If they really like this title, what more can we do to kind of keep this brand alive and make it a living thing? And we talked about early on, like, well, what would be the next thing we'd kind of want to do? And actually, Pirates was the next thing we wanted to do. And then probably about midway through Dice of Crowns, we're like, okay, what's going to be the third thing we want to do? So we've already got an idea of that, and some very early testing of how the gameplay might work with it. So we're already starting in on that.
Okay. Well, pirates and ninjas are a thing, so I'm going to put my money on ninjas. But
I'd love to hear what people think it's going to be. I hope it will be. I think it's going to be something people are really going to dig, because there's some extra things that we're going to tie into it. So much like how Dice of Pirates is a one-off to itself, but also has a tie-in back to Dice of Crowns.
Okay, and I read somewhere, heard you talking about it, that there's a way for those 2 games to interact. Has that all been worked out yet? Is that something that you guys are still sort of nailing down?
From a gameplay standpoint, it's something that we are still in the testing progress on. and that's actually going to be one of the stretch goals. If the backers can get it, then that's a rule set that we'll actually add in to the game. So you'll be able to play Dice of Pirates versus Dice of Crowns. So there's a reason to actually have both, that they can be played together, against each other. The pirates fighting against the royals.
Oh, very nice. All right. Well, like I said to you off air, you get to attack other players in Dice of Pirates. So I'm all in for that because I like that screw you element of the game. So you've won me over. I've got to get in. I was going to pledge anyway, but
Yay! Yeah, when we've had some people ask, so is Dice of Pirates just a reskin of Dice of Crowns? That's a viable question, because there's some publishers that do that, right? It's the quick and easy thing to do. Um, that's not something that we like. Like, we want to make sure that when we're working on a game, that we're giving people something unique and interesting. Talked to Badger at the very beginning was, okay, the next game is going to have elements in it that are part of Dice of Crowns. There has to be some piece that you'll recognize, go, oh yeah, this is tantamount to the feeling of the Dice of games. And then we have to have some new things that are going to be wholly new and interesting, and make it feel thematic to whatever the game is. So in this case, it was pirates, so we knew it had to have a feel of aggression, had to have a feel of just like going after people, and versus where Dice of Crowns was a little more backstabby and making alliances and being kind of sneaky and schemy.
Mm. And it's cool. All the games that you've had out so far have that social aspect to it. Click, click, boom. Obviously, much more to the forefront.
Right.
But also with the dice games as well. Like, for pirates, like if you roll the treasure, you're like, okay, I'll give this back to you, but I want you to attack, Bill or Sally or whatever, because otherwise I'm not gonna, I'm gonna give you the Kraken and you're out.
Exactly. Yeah, I've actually done that with some people at the tables where the two of us would roll a Kraken, and we'd be looking at each other like, okay, look, you send that Kraken to me, it's coming right back. This one's coming back at you, buddy. We can screw this person over together. A little mutual work here.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Great. So we'll do that.
Yeah, it's definitely cool because I think for most people looking at it, be like, oh, it's just it's a dice game, it's whatever, it's a luck thing, so to have that like sort of social interaction element to it, I don't think would be like forefront of most people's minds. So it's interesting, when I hear you talk about it, be like, oh yeah, you could definitely do this. It's like, oh, that's cool, you can do that. Why aren't we doing that already? Like, why aren't we doing that with all of our games?
Right. Yeah. For me, like, being a gamer, the thing that I really enjoy about tabletop gaming is the interaction with other people, right? Being able to make alliances and being able to engage with people, in some manner within the game. I'm not as interested in solitaire games, where it's just like I'm doing my thing and everything I'm doing is wholly encapsulated within my turn, and I'm not talking or engaging with you at all. I prefer those games where something I'm doing can affect you in a way, and something you're doing can affect me, and we're kind of working against each other, or we're partnering with people and things like that. I think that's what makes a gaming experience a lot more interesting, and it's something that you can't always get in like a digital game or something like that. You can have those solitaire experiences in a digital game.
Sure.
Play by myself, sure, whatever, and that's cool if that's your thing. But if you have some of your buddies together, like it's so much more fun if you're engaging with people at the table.
Right. Now, is that an inherent difference between a Euro style and an American style game, that social aspect? Because the Euros are so heavy mechanical. Does that dissuade people from that more social aspect of the game because you're trying to plan 3-4 moves ahead, and where am I going to put my guys, and how am I going to turn these sorts of things to my advantage?
I think so. You're starting to see a little bit more theme creep into the Euro games now, in that kind of like crossover of Euro with a little bit of Ameritrash, and Ameritrash with a little bit of Euro and things like that. It might just be the sensibilities of what Americans are more like the rough and tumble where the way the Europeans have kind of like approached their gameplay and game design is a lot more methodical and a lot more planned out and mechanical. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's the thing that I really dig, and I think it makes it a lot easier for people to kind of get into as well when there is that social element. It's not, which encourages people to kind of like deplug from everything else and plug into each other.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you're talking about, whether or not it was a reskin, and, obviously you guys have some new mechanics and it sort of changed some things around. Because there is a certain element of familiarity, you're like, oh, this is a dice up game. I know how this works. And then they get it and they're like, oh, it's not that, it's different. It's weird. Like, why is this way? So have you had any sort of pushback from people who have, loved Dice of Crowns to come in, oh, great, you've got a new one, let's play it. Like, oh, wait, why is that? I don't like what's happening.
Right. No, actually, they've been able to grok it pretty quickly, and that's because I think we chose the right elements that were core to the gameplay. So there were three basically design pillars that we had to stick with. One is a rule of three. So in Dice of Crowns, get 3 crowns, you get a crown token. Get 3 skulls, you can get a fate token. In Dice of Pirates, get 3 gold, you can get a coin from the sea. 3 krakens, and you're out. So it's definitely that familiarity there. Like 3 of a thing gets me something, or something happens.
Right.
Another piece was having to send dice out to other players to be able to like bring them in and engage with them, keep them active on your turn. So in this case, it's the ships that you're sending out to other players versus the scrolls. And color-wise, we're actually keeping them kind of the same. So the scrolls are brown, the ships are brown. The krakens are red, and the daggers are red. So color-wise, you should immediately know, oh, this brown symbol here, I bet I know what happens with this thing without even looking at the rules. You should be able to kind of grok that. And
Sure.
it seems like players have, the ones that are familiar with Dice of Crowns that have played it, like, oh yeah, I get, these things here, this happens. Okay, cool, I get that. And then I show them the new stuff, and they're like, oh, that's interesting, that's cool, it's something different.
Right, and it makes it a little bit deeper too. Like there's more strategy involved because of the new mechanics of being able to plunder other players and steal coins and things. So it does add another layer. It's still a beer and pretzel style game, but it does give you slightly more complexity than what you had with Dice Crowns.
Yeah, and I think it plays well into that pusher luck element, right? So you have to really decide, like, well, okay, I'm really close to winning. I could go after this guy and just go for the big win, but I could lose a whole bunch as well. Do I need to play it safe? And it's going to be harder for me to get the 3 coins I need just to get 1. So yeah, and seeing people kind of ponder through that a little bit, like, screw it, I'm just going to go for the big win. Like the Vegas style. They're going for it. I'm like, all right, that's awesome.
Yeah. What's that? I mean, that's the thing I like too. Like even like a low strategy game or beer and pretzel style game. There's like you still have to make choices. There's still things that happen, and some of it may be based on luck. Some of it may be based on the choice that you're making, or comes back around to that choice that you made. But you still have to decide to do a thing, and it may not be like, oh, I'm going to plan 12 moves ahead, but I'm still making a decision, and whatever happens, I've made that choice, and then the game plays from there. Like I really enjoy that aspect of I've been playing Hannah Makoji a ton, and we've been talking about it a little bit like through Instagram, and I like it. The art is beautiful. The gameplay is interesting, and it's so frustrating because you have very little agency. You only get to play one card that you know for sure that you're going to play, and then everything is just like left in the wind, and it's like, what?
Yeah. I really like the concept of I pick, you choose, because it's a really difficult choice to really push through, right? My wife and I were playing it last night for the first time, and she got to a point, she's like, these are terrible decisions. Like all of these choices I have are just terrible. I don't want to do any of these things.
Right.
That's an interesting trying to thing to kind of puzzle through, right? But I think kind of maybe one of the downsides is that game is like 99% I pick, you choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it might be just a little too much that way, where you don't really get to make your choices. I don't know. I can definitely see people having that problem with it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Two of your four choices are left up to somebody else because your other option is to bury two cards, and it's like, no, okay, but like, how much of an option is that really?
Right. Yeah. You're like, well, okay, this, I guess I guarantee that you're not going to get this, but I'm screwing myself out of it too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's what I hate the most, just because I understand why they have it in there from a account standpoint, but it almost seems like anything would have been better than toss two cards away. Like, that's just a terrible choice. Like, that benefits nobody, and just the last thing that you always end up playing, just because you're like, well, okay, I'm pitching these, I guess, because that's the last thing I can do.
yeah. Uh, so Badger designed Dice of Pirates as well, same designer for Dice Crowns.
Hmm.
Did he like come fully complete? Like, this is what we have, or do you have input into the design process as far as like, hey, we have this dice of mechanic, but as you guys are manipulating and adding mechanics and things, like, how much input do you have with that aspect of the gaming?
Uh, Probably a lot more than a typical designer-publisher relationship. Badger and I have been friends for a long time, so um, he'll give me like his very early prototype, like, okay, here's what I'm thinking, right? And we'll kind of go through it, or we'll talk through it, or he'll print up the dice and we'll just kind of like play through it, and we'll talk about, well, what's not working, what things we could do, and we'll spitball different ideas. So there's some things in there that I've contributed to help kind of bring it forward. He'll take an idea of mine and maybe like twist it and spin it a little bit. It might be a little off. He's like, well, I like where you're going with it, but I feel like it's a little too far out. So what if we do this instead? Hey, that's a great idea. So we definitely have kind of a camaraderie, a designer developer relationship that we work well together on.
Well, that's good. Do you is there ever a point where you're like, oh, we should do this, and he's like, no, we're just not. We're not going to do that.
Sometimes, yeah. Like, I'll just like throw out wild ideas just to kind of. I know it may be a bad idea, but it's more of like, I'm trying to kickstart ideas going, and kind of get him into that thinking space, right? And so you're like, oh no, that's a terrible idea. Well, yeah, I know it's a terrible idea, but what do you have to counter? Come back with something, against that. Um, and our whole team is a little bit like that as well. Darren, the artist, and Chris, our illustrator, both of those guys tend to have input on different things. They offered up some ideas for the when you have seven daggers in Dice of Crowns. Some of those ideas came directly from the team, and their input on things. So um, we tend to be a lot more collaborative with one person definitely having the say. So like Badger owns the design. If someone has an idea, like, oh, I'd really like to see this, like, well, if Badger agrees that it's a good idea, and I as the publisher agree that, yeah, we need to have that in there, then sure, we can go ahead and do that. Um, the flip side of that is sometimes discussions can get a little heated or a little crazy,
Right.
and I have to kind of rein people back. Like, okay, we've really gone off the rails on this. We need to dial this way the hell back. This is the direction we're gonna go. We need to kind of like shut the discussion down. Cool, thanks everybody. Really appreciate your input, but this is what we're gonna do now.
I mean, that happens. But that means everybody's engaged and everybody's passionate and everybody's into the things that are going on. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you don't want fist fights in the boardroom, but
Right. Yeah, most of our collaborations are through email, so it's I can I can start to see things go a little awry, and then I can like message someone, kind of on the side, like, "Yo, this is kind of going a little crazy. Let's chill out here," and I'll talk them off a cliff essentially, because they're like, "Oh my God, what's going on? This is freaking me out." Like, no, I got this. It's cool. I'll handle it. Don't worry. And again, we're all creative types, right? Everybody's got, different ideas, and the fact that the team is very passionate about the game and about wanting to create something really awesome and great, and something that is really worth people's money and time. That's something I'm really happy about. I like that we have that sort of teamwork. That we can kind of get everybody wrapped up into it, and everybody kind of gets a little bit of their say.
Cool. That's awesome. You want to talk about some of the changes to the mechanics that we've been sort of dancing around? What changes in Dice of Pirates from Dice of Crowns?
Sure. So probably the biggest change is direct combat with someone. So if you're a pirate, like it's about aggression, right? You want to go after someone, and you do that through the combat dice. So when two of the die faces on there, I think in the print and play version, it looks like swords because we're doing 3D prints, and that was just the easiest thing to do, crossed swords, right? But the die symbol, if you look on Kickstarter, it's the Jolly Roger symbol. So you can use those if you have at least three. Rules three. If you have at least three of those, then you can use them to attack someone. And you take all your dice which have Jolly Rogers and you roll them. And every coin you get, you're stealing a coin from someone. And every ship that you get, it's going out to them. So all of a sudden, it kind of like boils down to this you versus me, mano a mano. We're going to duke it out. And I'm going to try and steal as much gold from you as I can. And you're going to try and steal as much gold back. So it's definitely not a guaranteed thing. It's a high risk, but there's a lot of high reward too. And when we've done playtests, there's that Vegas feel, right? You see people, everybody are like just kind of gripping the table, going, oh my God, oh, he did that. Holy crap, he got 5 coins. Ah, like everybody starts yelling and freaking out the different rolls that show up. So that's really great. Seeing people really that energized about it, and getting that caught up in the excitement.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's good for like those Munchkin style players too. It's like I don't care what happens. I just want to attack you. Like that's my whole purpose for existence right now.
Well, and the interesting thing, so in Dice of Crowns, it sort of self-balances itself. So the person that you typically want to send dice to is a person that's doing the worst. So you don't want to give them to a big threat, so you're going to give them the person that's actually like in the bottom end. And the same thing with Dice of Pirates. The person that you're going to hand off ships to, it's the person that doesn't have a whole lot of gold, maybe doesn't have any. Interesting thing, there's no player elimination. So if you lose all of your gold, you're still in the game, and actually
Right.
you become one of the biggest threats at the table. I've just kind of like realized as we've been playtesting, the person with no gold, they've got nothing to lose. One, sure, you get 5 gold from them. Hey, guess what? I'm poor. Go ahead and steal from the board. You're getting jack, but I can just steal whatever I want from you, or whatever I can, roll from you. Um,
Right.
One of the new pieces that we added was a ship sent to you off someone the active player's roll, and you roll a coin. You can actually choose to flip that to any other side, which typically you would just send back, whatever you rolled. With a coin, if you give them a coin, that's a benefit to them. You get a plunder token, and that plunder token actually increases your attack, so it makes you stronger. And you'll see people kind of like scan the table and go, "Oh, that guy's got a lot of attack over there. I need to kind of stay away from him." Or maybe like, well, he's starting to build up a fleet of forces over there. I need to go just attack him just to knock that down a little bit, so he doesn't become this like crazy threat. Unchecked, you go into a combat and you've got 7 plunder tokens or something crazy, like you're gonna clean house with someone, because those plunder tokens basically are coins. When you go into combat, you choose how much you want to spend. So say I go into a combat with you, I've got 4 plunder tokens. We roll dice, maybe you got 2 coins, I get 1. Well, I can use those 4, cancel out one of your coins, and then I've got 3 more that I could spend. Like, okay, yeah, I'll just take 3 of your coins now. I have to use these to do it. Things that we added was the ship that's in the game, which we were able to unlock the cool 3D. The ship is actually a functioning piece in the game. So you get control of the ship by spending 2 of your plunder tokens. Once you've got it, that ship is now fighting for you. And every time you go into combat, you get an automatic +1. So you're just stronger at the table. You don't have to spend it to do that. The downside is that it's a fickle friend, because it's going to fight for the best pirate, and if you lose a combat, that ship goes over to the other player.
Right.
So, you know, people really seem to dig that. In Dice of Crowns, the crown was the trophy, and it was exciting to get it. And in this, like, oh, this is a thing that I get to use. This is a piece of the game that we can incorporate in gameplay.
Right. And again, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, do I do that and it's going to screw me, or I let the other guy do it, and then hopefully I can take it from him because I roll better than he does, and I didn't have to do anything. I just get it now.
Yeah. Who's going to pull the trigger and get in the ship first?
Yeah. So again, it's interesting. It's not like super complex or whatever, but again, it's a decision of like, how do I want to approach this? That's what I mean. Other than the social interaction stuff, it's all those little decisions that you make in game that I really enjoy. I'm not great. Like, I'll lose a shit ton of games all the time, but I still enjoy playing because you own that. Like I did this and it didn't work. Like, so maybe I'll try something different next time.
Yeah. It's kind of funny to see the psychology of how people react to things. Like, if someone gets the ship and they lose it, they may want to, like, a lot of times they may want to go after that person. Strategic, slighted, right? Like, you stole that from me, you jerk. No, I'm going to come back at you. Strategically, this guy over here is better to go after. No, I want my ship back, damn it. Like, yeah. Okay, sure, go ahead. It's funny to see people, the ownership that people have of things, and how that can really impact the gameplay and how things play out.
Have you found in play testing, like, so if I get 3 Jolly Rogers, I can plunder. Does it pay to plunder with 3, or is there some tipping point where it's like, oh, this is better at 4 or 5 if I can swing it?
3. There really isn't a tipping point, because again, you're having to roll the dice, right? You're setting everything aside, and statistically, you have a higher probability if you're going in fighting with 7 dice. Like, you can pretty easily get 7 of your plunder tokens, or 7 of your plunder dice, right? Combat dice. Like, okay, I've got 7. Here we go. Now, again, it's a big risk. So if you roll 7 ships, wow, that guy's got a whole chance to come mess your world up. So there really isn't a, like, well, I always need this number. So which I think kind of plays out well, right? It's a fun thing to do. It might be better from like a risk reward standpoint of like, well, I need 2. Maybe I'm just going to use 4. I have, if I go into combat, I have to use whatever swords I've got. So I need to sort of balance that out as well. Like, what's my risk here? Am I really willing to risk 5 to try and get it? Because that could screw me over. Well, I'm just going to risk, 3. So
right. So it's interesting. So, like, in the previous iteration, you have to reroll all of the same. But so if you have 5 plunder dice, you could wager 2 or wager 3 and hold some in. You have your crew in reserve. So
right.
If you roll 3 ships, you're like, oh shit, or if you roll all 5, you roll all ships, you're like, oh crap, I'm gonna get screwed now, because what are the odds they roll 5 ships? That's interesting too, because like I would be like, fuck, I'm just gonna roll them all, and then be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, the choice of like what you're choosing to roll, like, again, like much like with Dice of Crowns, like everything's rolled as sets, right? So so you've got 4 combat dice, you've got 2 scrolls, and you've got a kraken. Like, well, okay, you can choose to reroll those 2 or scrolls. Geez, you can choose to reroll those 2 ships and try and get some more combat. Risk of rolling into more of those krakens. So maybe you just go ahead and take the easy way out and just take the combat that you've got and swing into combat that way.
Right. That's cool. I dig it. I think I might not having played it. But I just talking about it, I think I might like this one more than Dice of Crowns.
I've had some people say that. Some people are like, I dig it a little bit more just because of that direct combat, that visceral feel. Where I've had some people say, well, I like Dice Ground a bit more. That's fine too. Like they have a different feel, and that was something that we really wanted. Like we wanted them to feel thematically like what we're building them as, right? So, you know, um, some people are more like, well, I like both because then I have options, right? I've got people here that might be more into a little, backstabbery, or I've got people here that are like, they're my aggressive play group, like they're really going to be into crowns. So, that's the fact that you've got that sort of option. I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, but my Venn diagram would totally be like antagonistic, not the co-op. Like I enjoy some co-op games, but that's definitely not my bailiwick. I want to like as I play a lot of two-player stuff, so like it's almost always a struggle against someone else. And when we play three and occasionally four, like we played Samurai today. I'm teaching at our local gaming convention is this weekend, Rincon
Oh, right on.
up in Tucson. So last year was the first year I went, and then I was like, we did panels at Necronomicon this year, and I was like, shit, I'm going to sign up to do some, teach some games and do another panel at Tucson Comic Con this year coming up in another couple of weeks. So we've been playing it all week because I haven't played it forever. But shit, I don't even remember how to play this game. But it's the same sort of thing. It's not necessarily antagonistic, but there are a couple of tokens in the game where you can. So there's three castes in the game. So there's the agriculture, which is represented by rice, military, which is castles, and religion, which is Buddha. Mm-hmm. So you place your tiles around the spots on the board, and then as they get enclosed, whoever has the highest influence takes the piece and has that influence over thing. But there's a tile that will allow you to take one of those cast pieces and switch it out from somebody. So somebody might have invested like 3 or 4 tiles and like, I'm gonna get it. And you're like, oh, you've got 6 influence of religion on that. Okay, cool. There's a castle here now, and I'm gonna put my 2 points of castle influence, and I'm just gonna take it.
Wow.
So that's how we've been playing this week.
Nice.
And I don't like. It's not even in the intention of that game. I mean, I guess kind of because the piece is in there, but
Yeah, my playstyle tends to be a little bit more attacky, antagonistic as well. The joke on my gaming group is that if it's competitive or if it's cooperative, it's competitive. And I mean, co-ops are okay. I think they can be a good way of teaching people games because you're working together. The thing I don't like about co-ops is that they usually tend to suffer from the alpha syndrome. One player kind of, running the table and directing everyone. They're like, oh, that's not as much fun. Versus, antagonistic, like everybody's, out for each other. We can team up maybe for a little bit, but, definitely it's one person's going to win. And that's actually one of the things that we're working at with the Dice of Pirates versus Dice of Crowns is that there's it's basically a one versus many. And you have the pirates fighting against one player who's the royal. They were the winner of the crown. And the pirates have 2 ways they can win. And one of the ways they can win is that wins and the others lose. So there's a bit of a balance of like, well, we're working together here to do this thing, but then at some point you're like, no, screw you guys. I want to win. I want the victory for me. Like, F you guys. So again, that felt very piratey as well, right? So like, yeah, we'll work together. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, screw you. I'm taking everything for myself for the glory.
They're very Jack Sparrow,
right? I win more.
Yeah. Well, cool. So this is the third one. You guys are gonna fun. I mean, you guys are blowing it away. You're pulling through stretch goals. So third successful Kickstarter. Is it any easier now, having done it a couple of times? Does each project sort of present its own unique challenges?
I'd say that actually they still present challenges. The fact that um, there's no guarantee, right? So we like to hope that the game that we put up is going to be interesting to people. That Dice of Pirates is going to be something people wanted. They were all the preliminary stuff we were doing leading up to that. That was a whole lot of work, right? Like kind of getting people interested and kind of like teasing them out and showing, oh, here's this thing that we're working on, and so that was a lot of work. And then once your game funds, you don't really have the ability to kind of like sit back and relax. Like you sort of have to like stay on top of things because you have to keep people engaged, right? So we're always working on like, okay, what stretch goals do we need to have available? How far out should they be? You know, a lot of times we're kind of adjusting that behind the scenes in order to be able to keep backers engaged so that things aren't too far out. If it's something's too far out and people aren't really engaging, like, well, maybe we need to push this in a little bit so it's a little easier to get to for this next one. Listening to what people are talking about in the forums, like, oh, what kind of things are you guys interested in seeing? Oh, we'd like to see blah blah blah. Like, yeah, that's something we could do. That's interesting. So we'll talk about it and figure out what's the cost on that, and then see if we can work that into the stretch goals. So that sort of thing.
Cool. And it's interesting now, like you're seeing a lot more on the social stretch goals aspects of stuff. So we get so many retweets, so many followers on Twitter or Instagram and things like there's always another level of like what am I getting for this level of engagement. Like the game's $10. Like you're getting an awesome game for $10. Like it's
Right.
worth it on its face if there were no stretch goals at all. Like obviously the quality increases are nice. Like the from silkscreen dice to engraved dice and all that stuff. Like it's never a bad thing, but just like you're getting something cool for $10. Like you could stick it in your pocket, you take it to work, you play at lunch, you take it to school, you play at lunch. Like it's like that fits my wheelhouse perfect. Like I love a light game. I don't know what that says about me, but
Yeah. Well, I think to that point, one of the things that I've noticed, like as much as I like the bigger, heavier, longer games, the ones that I find I'm most likely or able to play much more often are the ones that are lighter, that take 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20, 30 minutes. Those things that you can play over your lunch break, right? You're going to get to the table a whole lot more often. They're usually things that you can teach to people that aren't necessarily like gamer core gamers. They're maybe new to the whole hobby. And I think that is, as gamers, that's something like, oh, hey, I can game with this group, or I can get into this, or I can do these things. I don't have to figure out like, okay, this is a 3-hour game. When the hell am I going to be able to get this to the table? This is an awesome game, but Jesus, it's 3 hours. When is this going to be able to happen? Right? It's just so much harder to schedule, and then you got to plan everybody's. Oh, can you do this weekend? Oh, I'm busy, or I can only do it from this time to this time. Well, I can do it this time to this time. Like, oh my God, this is never going to happen. So the smaller ones, just you can make happen. Right.
yeah, that sounds just like running a podcast. When can we get this game in? When can we do this interview? Oh well, like Thursday at 4. It's like what are we? Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of podcasts, I don't know if we talked about this the last time we were on, but you're co-hosting or itinerantly co-hosting on BJ Shea's Geek Nation podcast.
Yeah, we started up. I think we're on episode 18, something like that. We're trying to do about once every other week, and the show's format's been changing a little bit as far as like time. That's just because of the people that hold like the purse strings, because they're actually part of Entercom, the radio network, and so we actually have a pretty broad coverage, and they're starting to go, oh, this is a thing. They're starting to kind of become aware of the whole like podcasting stuff, and they're looking into like, well, how is this something that we can monetize this in a way that it can fund itself, right? So it's not just us, nobody gets paid, for doing it right now. We're just we do it because it's fun and we like it, and it's enjoyable. We get to sit around and talk about games, and that's always fun, right? But they're looking at it from a standpoint of like, what can we do to increase the viewership or listenership? What kind of tie-ins can we do? Is from like people in the tabletop scene, are they going to be able to want to maybe purchase some time? We can do like a feature review or things like that. So there's lots of interesting things that we're kind of looking at on the far spectrum of stuff. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work because luckily my portion is minuscule. I do the Kickstarter, basically Kickstarter roundup, and I take a look at whatever stuff is on Kickstarter at the time and kind of go through them and see what is something that I think people are really going to enjoy, something that's different, unique, that has a chance of has a good chance of funding, or if it's something that's in our friends are working on, like, oh hey, we know this guy, he's a friend of the show, he's a friend of our group, we know he's trustworthy, he's worth your funding for this project. So
That's cool. Yeah, you see, you've got it easy. I just show up, I look at a couple of things, hey, you should back this. Just sit in this chair for a little while.
Yeah, it's true. I don't have to do any of the editing, which is so nice.
Yeah,
I definitely have my fingers in a lot of other pies at the time, so like if I can keep my workload down to something manageable, like I mean, even the Kickstarter stuff, like I do a fair amount of research for it. It probably takes me a good 4 to 8 hours to do, because I really try and make sure that I'm not like leading people astray, that this thing is going to be viable. Like it's not a case of, yeah, this person, their previous project, it took them 2 years to fund and it was nothing but problems. Like, well, maybe you want to avoid that one, so we're not going to mention this game on our podcast because he's going to have the same problems, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably. Well, and it's interesting too for you going in as a like I look at stuff, I scroll through, like, oh, that looks cool, or this looks cool, but you go look at like as a designer and be like, oh, this has interesting mechanics, or I haven't seen this before, or like you're looking at it with a whole completely different set of eyes, which I think is really useful for people who maybe don't necessarily know what they're looking for. Like something catches their eye and like, oh, I'll do that thing, and maybe they've been burned or not, but you're providing much more useful information on that regard.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, like, there are, not naming any names, there are certainly games on Kickstarter that have funded very well, but when I've looked at them and I've really like looked at what they're doing mechanically and in the game, like there's not much here from a gameplay standpoint. This is kind of a bad game, or at least a boring one. There's really nothing that I don't think this is a good value add for, or a good spend of someone's money. And it looks cool from an art standpoint. It looks flashy. Their Kickstarter is attractive, but if you look at the game, like, no, this is not a good game. And so I'll avoid those kind of things, and I'll try and focus on the ones that do have something interesting going on, that are going to be things that you aren't going to go, oh, I played that once and it looks pretty and it's terrible.
Like, yeah. Do you find that a lot of the movie tie-ins tend towards that, where like, oh, it looks really cool, or oh, it's X movie, I love that movie, I'm gonna get it, and it's like, oh, this is like a board game from like the 80s, you're just it's Candyland, but it's pick a movie.
Right. Interestingly, I would say no. For the most part. I mean, there are some outliers there that have come out recently, or like, and that was okay. A lot more movie tie-ins that have been really good games. Gale Force 9 actually has two. They did Homeland and they did Sons of Anarchy. And both those are really good games. And I think they were just kind of passed over by people, thinking that, it was either a little in the sun, or what do they call it, the twilight of that show's run. And so people were like, meh, it was, I'm not as interested now because the show is kind of like starting to die out.
Sure.
But from a gameplay standpoint, they're really fun. Like Sons of Anarchy is an area control game that's pretty easy to get into. It's really thematic because it's all bikers, so you're dealing with drugs and guns and messing up other people and getting into big fights, like turf wars and stuff like that. It's really cool, and they've got some really nice components in it. Homeland is a kind of a hidden deduction game where you've got a group of people that are working against these terrorists, and there's one person or a couple of people that are there that are actually part of the terrorist cell, but they're all hidden. So they're trying to like make terrorist plots, advance. And there's guys that are in the political circle, and they're kind of in the middle of that because they're politicians, they're jerks.
Yeah.
So they've got their things going on, and everybody's trying to figure out like, well, who's doing what and what's going on, and things get crazy. Yeah, both are fantastic games. Oh God, there was another one recently that we had a chance to check out that and I can't think of the name right now, but I think because the people that are getting brought into these, Terminator, that was the other one I was thinking of.
Okay.
The Terminator board game, Space Goat, I believe, is the name of the company. They're actually up here in my neck of the woods, up in the Linwood area, or no, up in the Bellingham area. They brought their game down and showed us their prototype, and it's the T1000, and you're kind of going back and forth between future and the past, and it's a bigger game. There's a lot of stuff to it, a lot of minis and all that kind of stuff. But the gameplay was really cool and really interesting. You could tell that these guys were gamers first. Like they wanted to create a really fun, cool game and take aspects of the IP and feed that back into the game so that you're doing things that felt like you're part of that universe.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah, I saw a lot of good things about the Godfather game too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that game's awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, and again, that's another one I think is it's fairly easy to get into. Uh, Super bloody, like you're just killing people left and right and tossing the bodies in the river, which I think is awesome. Um, you're putting money in a little metal tin, so it's like your suitcase. You're stashing your money away, and the issue that I think they had from a licensing standpoint is they had the license for Marlon Brando, but they didn't have licenses for any of the other characters.
Oh,
So nobody in the game is really like a known person, but that's fine. Whatever. Uh, the rest of the theme is like 100%, gangland 20s Godfather type stuff. You're shaking businesses down for their money and trying to own certain sections of the city and turn around and screwing people over, doing car bombings and all kinds of crazy crap. But um, they you could tell Eric Lang was the designer on that, and he said that The Godfather was like really big important movie to him, and it shows. Like he really sunk that theme into that game. Again, making a really cool game first, and making sure that the IP was well represented within that fun gameplay.
cool. That's awesome. How many nights a week do you end up making it up to Playtest Northwest? Does it depend on whether or not like say have something coming to Kickstarter like Dice of Pirates, so you're gonna be up there quite a bit. You try to get out there once a week, twice a week.
It's kind of depends on the con schedule. So pretty much every convention they've been at, I've been to, and this year I've been trying to get to more of the one-off like weekend things because they have two different ways that they'll Playtest Northwest will actually go out and do demos. They'll either be at conventions like PAX, they'll be at Geek Girl Con. Actually, Geek Girl Con's this weekend. That's when we'll be at. And what was I? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, son. My daughter's checking on me. She's wanted to make sure that I was okay and didn't eat anything. Sweet kid. Um, so Playtest Northwest is at most of the Pacific Northwest game conventions. So I'm always at all of those, and they're also at a lot of local game stores, and those are typically a little bit shorter. They're usually like we'll be at this store on Saturday, we'll be at this store on Sunday, and I try to get those whenever I can. As we've been bringing in more and more games that we're working on, because we've got a whole slate of stuff for next year. It's been a little tricky to get to as many of those as I want, and also trying to balance out like the whole like family thing and everything else that's going on. So there's been a couple times like, well, I need to take this weekend off because Like I was at, we did a thing for Gen Cant because we weren't able to go to Gen Con, so we did a Gen Cant convention over here. Then I went to Dragonflight, and then I went to PAX, and then I went to Rose City Comic Con. So after 4 weekends in a row of going places, I'm like, man, I need a break. I need to just chill at home and not go anywhere because I'm gonna freaking die.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. What do you sleep like 48 minutes a night? Like,
Basically, yeah. I tried to get to bed between midnight and 2, and then get up at 5 in the morning. So, it's so good.
I don't know how you do. I figure I'm busy and I'm always running from here to there, and then I see a tweet from you at midnight, or because we're right now same time zone. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
What is this guy doing?
I can't imagine, because I know you get up early too, and I'm like, geez, that's crazy.
Yeah, if I get more than like 7 or 8 hours of sleep, I feel funky. Like I just don't feel right. I was doing some research once to someone found out a way that you could actually do like an hour's worth of sleep a day.
Oof.
And it wasn't something you could just live on doing, but like if you want to do it for like 30 days or something like that, you basically had to starve your brain from sleep, and you get to a point where you have to do specific, like I take a nap, as basically a 15-minute nap at a very specific time, and you do it 4 times throughout a 24-hour period. And you basically train your brain to know that like when I go to sleep, it's in survival mode, so it immediately hits REM as soon as you close your eyes, and then you wake up and you actually feel refreshed because you've had 15 minutes of full REM sleep. But to get there is a really difficult thing because again, like you're starving your brain from sleep and trying to like force it into a starvation period. So it's really hectic. They're like, we don't advise doing this, but we were able to do it for a certain amount of time. Like if you need to, like for college or something like that, but as a way to live, like it's not viable long term.
Yeah. I would imagine guys, in the military, like active service, probably, more like that. Like, they hit the ground and they're out. Until somebody gets them up, and then it's back to whatever.
Yeah, it's something my wife gets irritated at me about because I can just immediately go to sleep, right? My head hits the pillow and boom, I'm gone. And I think because I'm right at that point, right? It's like I'm not so bad that my brain's like, I'm never getting sleep. But I can, I get enough that when I wake up after 4 or 5 hours, I'm like, okay, I'm good to go. Let's rock and roll. And she's so irritated at me because in the morning I'll be like, yeah, let's go. I'm super excited. I'm a total morning person, even though I go to bed at midnight or 2. She's like, don't talk to me. Okay.
I got to bed on time last night, which is like 10 for me. That's what I shoot for. And
Wow.
the alarm went off this morning, and it went off for like 3 or 4 minutes before I like turned over and was like, "Fuck you." I hate it. My natural rhythm is to be awake at night, and I've been working the same shift now for my kid's going to be 17 this year, so for like 17 years.
Wow.
If I lay down on the couch in the middle of the afternoon, I will immediately fall asleep. It has me so wonky. Like, it took me a good year to get used to it, and then it's like, okay, I can function.
Mm-hmm.
But left to my own devices, I would completely invert, I would imagine, and not very long a period of time.
This for me is just there's so much stuff that I want to do and things I want to like experience and see. Like sleep is an annoyance to me. Like fine, I'll get this out of the way. I guess I got to do this thing. It's like a chore.
Yeah, some nights it's like that. It's like I have to do this at least. I have to cross these 4 things off my list, and if that means I'm going to bed at midnight, then I go to bed at midnight, and
right,
the next day really sucks.
There's been some mornings where I'm just like, just dragging. Where I may have 2 of the bigger like monsters, to drink throughout the day, plus 3 or 4 cups of coffee.
I do like 2. You speak of coffee, so let me throw this out. I would throw this at the end. Neil finally has the page up for Legends Coffee. You can get your
Woo!
legendary brew. I'm not going to give you the web address because it's some convoluted friggin' thing. There's not technically there's not a link in the show notes at the moment, but there will be when we wrap this up. And there's a page on the website. It's a medium roast, so it's got a little bit more caffeine in it than the Night Owl blend, which is what I've been drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Now that my legendary coffee is available, I'll be making the full switch over to that. I've tried the test blends that he had going. It's fantastic. So
It's
if
awesome.
you're into coffee, if you enjoy if coffee is not a tool and you really enjoy it, then you should try out the legendary brew. And the link is on the page, and I'll get a link up here in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to do that. I enjoy the taste of coffee. I mean, it is a tool for me to an extent, but I enjoy flavor.
Yeah,
I'm not just looking to dump, crap in my
right.
mouth.
So we have a Keurig at work, and it's not a good cup of coffee. It's okay, but
Hmm.
like superheating water and like running it through a bunch of plastic, like it can't be good for you, and it's not like the best flavor. So I got a big French press, so I took that to work. But we're pressing, I think it's Folgers, and I said to the guy I worked at, I'm like,
What?
order something else from Staples. I can't do this. It's enough to keep me from getting a headache in the morning, which is really my only concern in the morning.
Right.
Uh, so I have that, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to do the birds, which goes against everything I just said, because we drink, between the two of us every day, like we would just kill bags and bags of coffee. Uh, so I'm like, we'll pick up like something other than Folgers because it just tastes like shit. I don't get a headache, but it's garbage. Not sponsored by Folgers.
uh,
But when I get home in the afternoon, like that's I'll come in and I'm usually already dragging. So I get out my Night Owl blend, now my legendary brew, and have a good. And I take a little bit of honey. Uh,
oh, interesting.
Sugar is sugar, right? So your body processes it like, oh, you have fucking sugar, you diabetic son of a bitch. I'm not, but but the honey is actually like different kinds. Like just like a teaspoon of honey is not the equivalent of like a white processed sugar.
Right.
It has different sugars in it. Some are more complex than others. So even though it hits your body the same way, it breaks it down differently than just like a straight raw processed sugar. So
Hmm.
it's a little bit better. And depending on what kind of honey you're using, subtly change the flavor of the coffee. So
Have you tried looking at agave?
I've used agave before. It's relatively expensive, like that or honey. I'm like,
Mhm.
I get the honey.
All right. Yeah, the honey's cheaper. So I'm a type 2. Yeah. So I will actually use agave from time to time just because it's better from a blood sugar standpoint of
Yeah,
how your body, processes that. I use that. I use Splenda. I'll use some of the creamers just because I like a little creamer from my coffee. But the creamers I get are a lot of the sugar-free ones as well. So
yeah. So do you want? We're way far afield here. Do you watch your carbs and stuff like that too?
oh yeah, yeah. When I first got diagnosed, my dietitian told me I had to keep it at no more than 60 carbs per meal. So that's you think like, oh well, that's not so bad, But then you're like, you could have a burger, but then no fries or shake or anything like that. Like, so I drink a lot of water
Yeah.
especially when I'm at conventions and stuff, and so I'll carry Mios with me. I think we probably got like a dozen different like Mio type of stuff, various flavors and whatnot. Um, there's a lot of those out there, so there's a lot of different uh, ways that someone can be diabetic and still have the vast majority of things that you kind of expect. It's always a little different,
Mm.
but like for example, bread, is kind of a big one. Like there's lots of carbs in bread.
Yeah.
I like sandwiches, so that sucks. But Sarah Lee makes a bread that's just like, God, what is it? It's like 12 grams of carbs in a slice of bread. So I can
That's
have
pretty
a
good.
sandwich, and it's not too bad. Um, there's an ice cream called Halo Top, and they use sugar alcohols, and so the way sugar alcohol is processed with your body, it's a lot less detrimental versus a regular sugar. So, that's an ice cream that I can actually have some of. It's not a big deal. Um, there's a lot of different things that like never used to be around. So if you were diabetic, you're like, well, I'm screwed. I just sort of
Yeah.
have to like have a lot of things that don't taste good and avoid all the stuff that's fun. Like, oh, now you can actually do stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's again, we're way out, but last time I had my blood work done, it was like dicey, like it was kind of high, and I'm like, well, shit. So I started like cutting down on carbs. Like we don't keep soda and stuff in the house. We don't, keep a lot of candy and like those are like the big things. Like whatever, like cut that out. But it's the carbs that get on like every friggin' meal. It's like goddamn, and it's not even just like bread. It's your vegetables, your fruit, like everything is, fucking carbs through the wazoo. So I started drinking my coffee black, no creamers and stuff. And, I was like, black is okay, black, but, like a little honey, because it's better than the white sugar. Like,
Right.
like we're getting old. It sucks, right? So now you're like, fuck, I can't eat bread. I can't do this. Like, such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I was able to get it under control quick enough. So when I got diagnosed, my blood sugar was like 350, right? So a normal range is like 80 to 120. So yay, high score for me. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe not as
You
much.
win.
I win. That's the only time I ever get a high score is when my blood sugar. That's fantastic. So they were like, yeah, you're gonna have to be on insulin and start making a massive change to your diet. So I cut sugar out for a full month. Like I just said, I had nothing with sugar. And knowing that I was a big sugar junkie, after I kind of got over that hump, they're like, oh, okay, now I'm able to, like, say somebody has cake, right? Okay, I'll have a bite or two of cake. Because really, what I found out was that you taste the first bite or two of things, and after that, you're just shoveling stuff into your face and talking to people. So for me, a lot of it was just, I want to know what that tastes like. I want to be a part of whatever's going on, and I'm really curious, is that tastes good? I'll try a bite. Hey, that's good. Want any more? Nope, I'm good. I have my taste. I'm fantastic, thanks. I don't have that craving of like, oh, I really gotta have that. Like, oh, that just tastes good. I don't know. And because of that, I was able to, within 6 months, get off of insulin, and
Nice.
they put me just on the pills. So, and I actually had to dial back the amount of pills I was taking because they were making me too dizzy. They were lowering my blood sugar too much, so I'd like go bend down to pick something up and stand up like, ooh, oh my god, what's going on? Like, let's back our medication off a little. So, yeah, I quickly got under control. I lost a crap ton of weight. Normalized out a little bit now, so I gained a little bit back, but I'm nowhere near where I used to be, so it's been good.
Yeah, well, kudos to you, because like that's the tough thing. People are like, and not just diabetes, but like other aspects. Like, okay, you gotta watch you eat, you gotta go to the gym, you gotta do this. People are like, fuck it, just give me a pill. Like, I'm not gonna do it.
Right.
So that's awesome that you did it. Like I have a love-hate relationship with the gym. I was going for a while, and then I stopped, and then I started again, and then I stopped, and then I was like, okay, we're gonna go. And I went one day, and I haven't been back since. It's like, I know I should go because getting older, like you worry about all these different things. Like I don't want to have a heart attack one day, or being on air and be like, oh, I'm out,
No, John.
Nobody has my password, so like they don't foreclose my house or whatever. But that's awesome that you were able to like, really dig in and do it, and not have to take all the injections and all that stuff. That's great.
Well, from the exercise standpoint, a lot of it's just being active, right? So instead of taking the elevator to the third floor, take the stairs.
Yeah.
Instead of driving, 2 blocks over to your buddy's place, walk. It's if you do that little tiny stuff, it can have a big impact. It's not about like, and that's why people stop going to the gym and doing that sort of stuff, right? They're big, massive impacts on your schedule, and everybody's so busy. It's like, crap, I don't have time to, spend 3 hours doing this thing. Like, well, if you did like lots of little stuff throughout the day, it's a much bigger deal than what people really kind of think about it, and it doesn't impact you in that huge way that you kind of think.
Yeah. See, we should have had you when we did the healthy geek thing.
Exactly.
Next time, next time.
Next time.
All right, well, let's bring this back around. Let's steer this pirate ship back on course. Um, so you'd mentioned you guys have a bunch of stuff coming up. What other cool things are you guys working on?
Well, there is one that we've dialed in pretty well as far as a gameplay standpoint. Um, we're working on the art right now. There's a couple different artists that we're looking at. Uh, if we're talking about potentially having this up on Kickstarter in February-ish, like maybe mid-late February. Uh, so this one's actually been playtesting a lot at a lot of the Playtest Northwest events, and it's a two-player game specifically, and it's a Cthulhu-themed game where you have yay, you have six cards in your hand, and it's a bidding bluffing game of control. So the each card that you have is half of a set. So you and I both have the same cards in our hands. I've got six, you've got six. And say I've got like one of the cards is uh, a gate, like a gate, that the elder gods would come through.
Mhm.
So I've got half of a gate, you've got half of that gate. The gate has an influence number, and influence number is basically a currency that you use in order to get cards moved back and forth. And then it has a victory point count as well. So the way the gameplay is you put out a card face down, and then you put out an amount of influence that you're willing to spend to pay for that card. The other player can use their influence to try and like get control of it instead. So say I put out 2 influence for this card. It's one I really kind of want. You're like, well, you know what? You seem to want that, so I'm going to spend 3 influence for it. Well, now if I want it, I have to spend 4. So there's a bit of bidding back and forth. You don't know
Mhm.
exactly what it is, so I can try and trap you, make you think it's something I want. Maybe it's not, or maybe it is something I really do want. And you're like, oh crap! Now if I want this, I have to spend a whole lot. Um, then whoever wins the card gets to flip it face up. Now it's worth victory points for them, and the other player gets all of that influence. The interesting thing is that those cards can also be used as part of your purchase. So, like, once you have some things out, you can use those cards as an extra influence because they all have influence amounts on them. So now maybe I don't have a whole lot of coins, but I've got a lot of cards that have different influences on them, so I can use those as part of the bid. But I'm sacrificing those victory points. Uh,
Interesting.
if you marry both of those cards together, again, like I said, you've got half of it, I've got the other half. Once you marry those cards together, you get this effect. And sometimes there are things like flip one of them face down and then get to do like, I think the gate is you turn one of the cards face down, so you're sacrificing a victory point, and then you can flip another player's card face down.
Hmm.
So I can neutralize one of your high victory point cards by neutralizing a low victory point of mine.
Right, right.
There's things that let you. There's an interesting one. There's a Shoggoth. I've got half the Shoggoth. You've got half of a Shoggoth, and the ability of this card is that it's worth negative victory points, and but it's got a positive influence value. So it's a great one to bid with. But if you get it, you're like, oh crap! Now I've got these -3 victory points kind of hanging out on my board. But if you get both of them, you turn them both face down, and then you turn another player's card face down. So you neutralize all those negative victory points, and you screw someone else out of their points. So there's a lot of like messing with people, trying to figure out like, okay, I know exactly what he has, and as the game goes along, you can start to figure out what they might be playing.
Sure.
Uh, it's really highly strategic. It's really super thinky, but it plays out in like 15 minutes.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, the base game is there's 6 cards and you have 4 influence, so it's got a super tight economy. And then what we're working on right now is additional cards. So the Elder Gods like Cthulhu and Nyarlathotep and all those crazy things. Um, the initial feedback we've got from people is that they really, really dig it. It's that it's easy to teach to people. Like put out a card and put out a bit of influence. How much do you want to
Right,
spend?
right.
There you go. If you
Cool.
win, you get the card. If not, then you have to sacrifice it. Uh, the big thing on this is just going to be the production value. We want to have a really super high really cool looking production value for it, like tarot size cards, more high end tier influence tokens and things like that. The artists that we're looking at have some really, really cool art styles. And so depending on which way we go, like either one would be a perfect fit for this game. But they're artists that people haven't really seen in the board game scene before. So I think they can bring some really new and inventive art to the Cthulhu mythos. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that one. And that's going to be, like I said, one that's going to be in the first quarter. There's another game that we're working on that it's more of a family-oriented game. It's about dinosaurs. So this is one almost like a Habba level style game.
Okay.
So the idea is that everybody at the table is a curator. They're archaeologists, and you are collecting pieces of dinosaurs out in the center of the table. And you have two options. You either take two dinosaur parts from the center of the table, or you steal a dinosaur part from another player. And you have dinosaur cards in your hand, and those dinosaur cards have components that you have to fulfill in order to play them down and be able to, win them. And the first person that is able to build 3 of their dinosaur pieces for their little museum, their archaeological digs, then they win. So it's pretty simple, and it's a game that you can play with kids, but I've done a lot of tests with adults and they've really enjoyed it, which was really cool to see. Like, okay, good. This is a game that you can play with your kids and have fun doing it, because there's a little bit of thinkiness to it. Like, well, do I really want these two, or do I want to steal one from you? Again, that, competitive, like screw that other player over.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen kids like, oh, mom's got something I need. Guess what, mom? That's mine. Thanks. Like,
Right.
yeah, teach them young.
Yeah, I feel like Dragon Dodge is a lot like that too. Like, we got a review copy. We went thing. I backed it. I got a copy, and when I had the review copy, I took it to work. And then older guys would be like, "Hey, do you have that dragon thing? Did you bring that game today?" I'm like, no, I'll bring it tomorrow. Like, ask me all the time, and we play that at work all the time. Like it's just the changes they made were great. The quality, the cards and the tiles and everything is just really good. And because the same thing, like, this is like really just like a kid's game, but it is. But it's like everybody's super into it.
Yeah, I think games like that are really cool. Like, so I think the person that we signed on for this, I really like the story of how this game came about. Basically, the designer is someone that has done some daily Magic games, and it's her son that came up with the game. And I want to say he's 8 years old, and he came up with the idea, and she worked on the game with him, and she didn't want to control the design, but would ask him questions, kind of get him like figuring out like, oh, how do I solve this problem? And the idea that you've got a game designed by kids for families, that's a really cool story. That's a really interesting thing. And again, like, it's fun, right? So we were able to sign an artist for the game that is a phenomenal artist, someone that I worked with in the digital space. Really cute art style, really, cartoony kind of thing. The interesting thing about this is that we're approaching it from an educational standpoint. So each of the dinosaurs are going to have some sort of little blurb about, a little factoid about that dinosaur. That's so all the pieces on those dinosaurs are going to be pieces that actually would be in that dinosaur. They'll look really cute and appealing, from a wider audience standpoint, but there's still some factual stuff there. There's still some learning that can happen. So I really like that as a concept. Hopefully that'll be one that will do really well for people. We're actually going to be looking into alternate places to get the game into people's hands, like going to museums and things like that, and showing them like, hey, here's a game that you could put in your gift store. It's educational. It was designed by a kid. It's for families. It's really engaging and fun. So that's another one that we're looking at for next year. I got Dirty Cops that I'm still working on with some changes. The couple of I've had a couple of playtests I've been able to do with some tweaks that it made the setup time a lot less, so which was good, and it actually uh, made it a lot more engaging for everybody. Because one of the problems that I had before was that sometimes you could go into a round of combat and the criminals may not be attacking you, and you're like, well, good, okay, nobody's attacking me, awesome. I'm just going to load up on the take that cards and just screw everybody once all this combat's done. Um, the change I made was basically you have a number of cards based on each player account, and at the time that criminal is going to attack, you flip over a card and find out who they're shooting. So you don't know. You go into combat, like they could be going after anybody. It's all fair game, which I thought made a lot more sense thematically, right? It's not like some criminal is going to go, "Hey, officer, don't worry about it. I'm not going to shoot you. I'm going to shoot your buddy. It's cool." So the initial feedback we've got from that was that it felt really good. It felt a lot more well balanced. The issue now that I'm kind of dealing with is that people wanted to go too much on the combat cards, so I need to rebalance the numbers a little bit better right now. So the change is good. I just need to twiddle with the numbers a little bit and get that a little more back balanced. So that's another one we're looking at for next year. So here's a couple things to be thinking about on the horizon.
Nice. I get you penciled in.
Exactly.
That's cool. That's cool. The bid mechanic for the Cthulhu theme game reminds me a little bit of Isle of Skye. Like, so you have, what you have, and you know what you're putting out, and you're like, hey, this is 10 coins or 5, 7 coins or whatever it is, and you do kind of have that. I want it more than. There's less bluffing because everything's face up on the table, but it just
right.
kind of reminded me of that a little bit of putting in your influence on it, try to force someone to go higher if they really wanted it.
And there's also that, I mean, that in order to trigger any of your abilities, there's a couple of cards that have an ability just by itself, like they don't need to be married to anything. But the vast majority do. So that in order to trigger ability, you have to win a player's card. So it might be worthwhile to kind of go all in and grab something. A lot of the games, they're either really close, like a point or two difference between the winner and the loser, or they're massive sweeps, right? Like you just get dominated. And the thing that I've had people say is that after that first play, they're like, okay, I see where I did some things wrong and how I can try and play better the next time. So it's one that really rewards continued play, right? Because again, it goes so quickly. You're like, okay, well, I really want to be able to use this. If I use this thing, it's really risky. Maybe that's worth taking a risk on. People haven't really seen the needing 2 cards to be married together, and actually the art is actually split across both cards. Nice. So half of the art is on one, half of the art is on the other. So you actually like put them together, and like now you see the entire picture.
That's cool. That's very cool. And we were talking off air a little bit about some exclusive stretch goal stuff. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah. So one of the things I mentioned, the Dice of Pirates versus Dice of Crowns. That's one of the stretch goals that we're working on. It's the pirates all working together against the royals. That's a future stretch goal. So we're working on the full details of how that's going to play out. Still a couple of balance things that we need to tweak on, but it's pretty close there. I'd say it's like 85% ready. So we'll see if they can get that as one of their stretch goals. There's another one, but I won't say what that one is. So I could leave some interesting things for people to see. But I really hope that, and I feel like we'll get there. If Dice of Pirates hits at least what Dice of Crowns did, then people will be able to get kind of everything that they're expecting and a little more.
Nice. Is this one a little bit longer of a period? Because as I was looking today, it was like 26 days left, and I feel like it's been, a week or two since it's been
It's been
out.
about a week.
Okay.
Um, and it was a little longer than we were really wanting. Typically, we want our Kickstarters to be within 25, 30 days or so. Um, the reason why it had to be longer is we had to get in the date that we got into just because of other games that we knew were coming to Kickstarter, so we wanted to kind of get ahead of the curve a little bit.
Mm.
But we also want to be live during two different conventions. One of them is Geek Girl Con, which is this weekend, and another one is Central City Comic Con, which is the 21st and 22nd of October down in Yakima. This will be year 3 of the con, I believe, and they have a really big tabletop gaming focus for their con, as well as like the comics and having different you know geek world people showing up. Like they've got Carol Spiney, who does the voice of Big Bird.
Oh,
Is
cool.
coming to the con. They've got some people from Breaking Bad that are showing up, some Power Rangers and stuff like that. So they're trying to grow it into be a much bigger comic convention for the central Washington east side of the state. And I've been there since day one. And one of the things that I've been doing is that, and I started doing last year, and I'm going to be able to do it this year, is I bring a bunch of games along with the ones that I'm playtesting, but I bring games along as a prize. And so every couple of hours, I'll do raffle tickets. After people are done playing a game, give them a free raffle ticket, and we do drawings for free games. And it's stuff that I'm pulling out of my own collection that I'm not really playing this anymore. A lot of my gamer buddies that are like big Kickstarter backers and stuff, they're like, yeah, we'll donate a bunch of stuff to you as well. So I show up with a whole lot of games. So people are like, wait, we get to play games and we win free games? That's awesome. And the con
Yeah.
owner's like, we want you back. You're awesome. You have a big draw. Like, yay, everybody's getting to have fun. That's cool. That's kind of what it's about for me. And so since they really support me, I wanted to be sure that we had Dice of Pirates up during the end of that con. So the Kickstarter will be ending basically that Monday after I get back from that. So
Okay. Yeah, it struck me when I looked at it. I was like,
yeah. Ideally, it would have been shorter, but like, well, we want to hit both these cons. Okay, well, that's what you got to do.
hey, no, that's cool. Do you have like a whole room full of games? Like, is your garage packed? Like, I know you're a super backer on Kickstarter. Like, is your wife ready to throw you out now? Like,
Oh, she was ready to throw me out long ago.
not for
Let's,
game.
let's see. I'm looking at a bunch of games in my closet right now. In my garage, I've got a big Calyx shelf that she picked up for me. That's packed full with some games on top, and I've got some games at work on a shelf, and I've got some games here beside my bed as well. So I've got a couple. Yeah, just a few.
Nice. So how tall is your stack of shame? Do you have many games that you haven't played yet?
Oh my God, yeah, it's way bigger than it really should be.
Is it at least as tall as you?
Probably. It would not surprise me. Yeah, there's some like I really want to get to this game, but oh my God, the rules on this are a nightmare to pour through. Or this one's a really long game. Hopefully, I can get this one to the table. Millennium Blades is one that I've got that I've been really wanting to play because I'm a big Magic the Gathering fan, and Millennium Blades is basically a Magic the Gathering tournament in a board game. So it's very meta. So each card is basically a pack of cards. So there's a whole building your deck and buying stuff and then playing the tournament. And then once you play the tournament, then whatever you win is rewards. You can go back and you can sell cards, and there's an economy to it. So it's like this 3 hour long game, right? This whole experience. But it feels like you went down to play Magic the Gathering, and you bought a bunch of cards to tweak your deck and try to make the best tournament deck possible. It's really crazy the way they did it, and it's supposed to be really really good. Haven't been able to get it to the table yet. It's freaking annoying, but what are you gonna do? we do a lot of extra gaming, so I get to do. I play a whole ton of crap, so I can't complain all that much. We're gonna be doing a thing for Extra Life, where we play games for 25 hours, and I think we're gonna be live streaming it with late night tabletop over Twitch. So
Nice.
that'll be a lot of fun. We'll be playing a whole ton of games then as well. So
Cool. There you go. I do most of my gaming at work anymore, and like I said, I bring lighter games, quicker games, and we played 3 games of Samurai yesterday in an
wow.
hour, and I think we did 2 today. But Onitama or Love Letter, or Dice of Crowns, soon to be Dice of Pirates.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lantern, like anything we can get in a half an hour, and then maybe I'll bring 2 games or 3 games. It's like, all right, we can only play 2 of these. We'll play one. Pick 2, and we'll play 1 game of each, or we'll do try to get 3 games in. We'll get a rubber match. Somebody wins one, somebody wins the other one. Like, oh, we got to play one more. Do we have enough time? Shit, nobody's paying attention. Let's set it up again.
Nice. Have you tried King Domino or Codenames Duet?
I played King Domino at RocketCon here in Tucson a couple of months ago. We played 1 or 2 playthroughs, and I know you spoke really highly of it, and
Yeah.
it didn't catch me when I play. I would definitely play it again. I wouldn't run out to get it right away.
Mhm.
It was interesting. I was terrible. But yeah, it was one of those things. Like, it wasn't one of the ones that was like, oh yeah, I gotta have that. But
There's
it's okay.
I can see it. There's not a whole lot of direct screwage to there can be a little bit. You're like, well, I know you're really wanting this specific tile, so I'm going to take this just
Mm,
because I need to keep you from getting it,
right.
which is a little screwy. But it's more, it's trying to build, the best version of your little kingdom that you can, right? So,
Mm,
um, I can see maybe it not being totally your cup of tea just because it doesn't have that direct, like, kind of in your face aspect to it. Um, Codenames Duet is one that I picked up, but I haven't had a chance to play yet. But the fact that it's a 2-player version of Codenames struck me as being very interesting. So that's one I want to try out.
right. That's cool. Yeah, I tend to something I can play with 2 if it's just not a just outright 2-player. Like, I was at the Isle of Games, which is one of my local store, the store that I go to all the time, to pick up Jiraku, but they didn't have it yet. Because I'd seen it come across Twitter, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I started looking, and I'm like, well, this is an old game. So I'm friends with Seth Jaffe. So I, shot him a message on Twitter. I'm like, did you guys just license this? Like, what the hell is going on? He's like, oh yeah, it came out of Gen Con. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, we'll have to see if I can get it. And so I went in, and they're like, no, the distributor doesn't have it yet. Or, as soon as it comes in, we're gonna get it. It's probably gonna be like another 2 weeks. I'm like, all right, well, you can call whatever.
Right?
But it's 2 to 4, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can do that at work with 2, or if we get 3, or I can play with my brother when he comes over. So that's kind of stuff that I kind of gear towards.
One of the ones that we're gonna try and get in here soon is photosynthesis,
I
which
just seen that too. Yeah.
it's a really pretty game. Blue Orange, man, like they've just been killing it as far as like the production quality of all their stuff. Uh, there is a little bit more of a take that nature just to how you place things, because the idea of that one is that you're growing trees and everybody has their own like tree color, and you put them all together and they actually fit inside the box. Like the whole production value of how they handled putting the things away and setting it up was really well done. Um, but you're growing up these trees and you can actually like screw people out of points by growing your trees taller than theirs, because if your tree happens to be casting shade, they don't get anything for that. It's like your tree is like blocking it out of like the life-giving nutrients it
Right.
needs from the sun, and the sun's moving around the board. So you can really screw someone over one turn, but then maybe not as much on the next one unless you can place, competitively, and you're kind of like always trying to balance out like when I need to tear a tree down for points, or whether I'm trying to grow it up to be able to score it really big. And where I want to place it and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty easy to learn. Like the rulebook isn't really huge, but it's and I think like playtime's like 30 to 45 minutes or so. So, it's one of those, like if you've got an hour-long lunch, you can probably get into.
Mm-hmm. That's not too bad. We've been playing a lot of Lotus recently, too.
Nice, yeah.
I picked that up. There was a new store that opened. I'm so like, let me go in, check it out, local community, blah, blah, blah. So my kid saw it, and she was like, oh, this is pretty. And I'm like, I'll buy it if you'll play it. She's like, oh, I'll probably play it. So we got home. I started opening up. I'm like, come on. She's like, no, I don't want to play it right now. I'm like, God, fucking damn it. So we went. So I took it to work. We played it at work. I mean, we played it like a half a dozen times before she and I finally sat down to play it. And she was like, oh, I like it. It's it's cool. It's pretty. It's fun. And it's fun. Again, it's just like all of us at work, bunch of dudes. It's like, did you bring Lotus? Did you bring that game with the flowers? Yeah, I got it. It's in my bag.
I want to make pretty flowers.
But it's cool because, again, you get those, do I take the victory points or do I take the thing that breaks the rules? And, like, if you're the guy that breaks the rules, you're like, oh, cool, I got this. I got enough power on here. I'm going to put my little guardian on there. And like, oh, no, I have my elder guardians. Let me throw this down first. And then let me throw these 2 cards. Like, fuck you. Like,
yeah, that's a great game. So it definitely has a whole lot of direct player interaction.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. All right, so we should probably wrap it again because we could probably just do this for hours, right? I mean, so there's links in the show notes. You want to go out and check out Dice of Pirates. It's only $10. It's 2 to 6 players. You play 15 minutes, a half hour. If you like Dice of Crowns, you're going to love Dice of Pirates. If you've had one, hopefully you'll be able to play the 2 of them together. So you want to hedge your bets, like, get in, make sure, they'll probably hit that stretch goal. So then you've got roll both of those games into one and then just have to wait for that third one to come out. And it just be like there's probably mass combat rules. There may be some other weird things going on. I don't know. But we'll have Sean on again. He can tell us all about it.
Indeed.
So cool. I want to thank you for coming on. All the links and stuff are, in the show notes there for people to check out the Instagram and the Twitter and obviously the Kickstarter page. So I appreciate you coming on. It's always a pleasure to have you. It's great to just like get in and talk about food and what we're eating and our blood results.
Exactly. Scintillating. No, I really appreciate you having me on. It's always a blast talking with you, and this is one of the things I really love about the hobby is just like really cool friendships that we get to have. Because hey, if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have gotten a chance to meet you, and you're a really cool guy, and it's awesome getting to kind of hang out with you when I get to.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I wish I was going to PAX Unplugged because I know you're going to be there, and it was one of the things that was kind of pushing me in that direction. And Danny's going to be there, and Jeff Wilkins from Into the Darkness, and obviously my itinerant co-host Vince is still in Jersey. So like there's a lot of things pushing me out, but it was like spend so much money at Necronomicon, and you're coming into like holiday season and stuff, and I'm like And I was just talking to Steel Empire today on Twitter. He posted something. They were going back and forth. He goes, oh, the guy must be from North Jersey. And I'm like, Burlington County represent. He's like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, not anymore. But he's like, oh, I'm in, Gloucester County. I'm like, well, shit. I really wish I was coming out now because there's just like, so many people that are going to be there. And it's like, I'm going to be at home.
Oh, it's too bad.
Yeah,
I'm really excited. I'm just be able to get finally over to that side of the country and hang out with some of the people that get to talk to on Twitter or Instagram or whatever that don't typically get to see because I'm over on the West Coast, stuck over here. So
yeah, that is the cool thing about being able to podcast and kind of being adjacent to the community is like you said, the friendships and getting to hang out with people and talk to people and learn about new games, new things that are coming out, and things that you guys are working on, and it's really cool for me to to be a part of that in some way, and we're not pushing it. You're not selling another 100,000 copies of Dice of Pirates because you're on tonight. But if you sell a couple, like, hey, that's cool, and it's just cool just to
Exactly.
hang out and just chew the fat and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is a fantastic hobby, and everybody in it is, super really nice and really cool. I was able to have a write-in interview with Carla from Weird Giraffe. She is one of the contributors to a certain. Can I think of the name of the group? I'm a terrible person. Anyway, she has a game up on Kickstarter right now, and the fact that she was able to talk to me and was interested in my game, and I gave her a lot of shout outs and press back, and Stellar Leap, that's the name of her title. Really cool, like space-based game, 4X space game, and that's really cool. Like she didn't have any real vested interest, from like a business standpoint to to back my game and to mention on her social media stuff, but she did, and I did the same thing because it's cool. I want to see her game do well because I'd like to play it.
Yeah. Yeah, we have selfish motives in that regard.
Yeah, that's really the only selfish. I want to play your game, damn it, do well.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, that's it is a really good community. I mean, my experience has been overwhelmingly positive, and of course, you always get those outliers and stuff. And fortunately, we haven't experienced any of that, and I'm glad to see that you haven't either. So, yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's all about the camaraderie and the friendships and everything else. So it's just been so much fun to be able to do this.
Yeah, for sure. This is why we need to spread the word and let people know, like, this is a really cool hobby to be a part of. A lot of really neat people.
Mm-hmm. Support your local stores if you have one.
Yes.
Go out and meet like-minded people and play games. So cool. So thanks again. It is a pleasure as always.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Anytime, I'm here. You just got to shoot me an email and we'll definitely get you on. We'll make room for sure.
Sweet.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody, for checking it out, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, everybody.